The Eagles, 28-3, a normal win. What does it mean? What is sustainable? What might not be? We talk about it all coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Zach Berman right next to me, looking sharp. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monday show on the PHLY Eagles podcast, presented by our good friends at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app today and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Zach Berman, you must be feeling good. We got a normal game. This feels like a week in which we can set aside the melodrama and talk ball. Plenty to get to. We're going to talk about the offense, what might be sustainable. The defense, are they for real? But I think we should start today with the big question. You're a Philly guy, a Pennsylvania guy. I wonder if you have any thoughts on the majesty of Arnold Palmer's hog.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about here. I know Arnold Palmer.
Yeah, go Deeks.
Oh, there. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Is there something I'm missing here?
You're not familiar?
Is there a joke that I'm out on, Julia? Yeah. You didn't discuss this on yesterday's show. I listened.
No, I wanted to wait for you. I wanted to get your thoughts.
Oh,
yeah.
I have no.
The size, the girth.
Is this a thing?
Apparently, it's the most important thing.
Yeah. No, in my show prep today, that did not come up.
Okay. Well, we can talk about that. Revisit it later.
I'm just going to Google real quick.
Yeah, Google Arnold Palmer's hog and see what comes up.
I'm going to Google Arnold Palmer to see what I'm missing here.
Okay. Well, in that case, Palmer. We can start with...
okay. All right. Now I see. All right. Yeah. I wouldn't have known that. Yeah. That did not show up in the New York Times.
It should have. It absolutely should have. I bet it did, actually.
No, not what I read. Anyway.
It should be in there.
Anyways, yeah. So what's a normal win? Tell me that. What's a normal win? What is as opposed to an abnormal win?
A normal win is a win in which the head coach is not manically screaming at his own fans. I would say is at least one of the barometers.
Okay. Yeah. So that is fair.
I know you wrote about the game on allphy.com. Everybody should read that. But yeah, and then you're making the apology or the like, oh, well, by the way, last week was a win. You cannot pretend that last week was a normal win that we should celebrate. But this was a game in which the Eagles took care of business, a team that they are more talented than. They squeezed the life out of them. The defense was fantastic. And the offense, after another slow start, was able to lean on where they are strongest. And boy, did Saquon look good.
Yeah, I think the best thing about yesterday's win, and you guys addressed it on the post-game show, which I thought was great, was that the sign of a good team is often how you play against bad teams. And it struck me that the Eagles hadn't had a win of 20-plus points since the 49ers game in the NFC Championship. So all of last year, they did not have a single win of 20-plus points. They had 2 wins of 14. But so you might say 20 is an arbitrary number. 20 is a blowout, right? This was their first win by more than one score since last October. I think October 23rd last year, right? So that shows you, yeah, the Eagles' normal has been squeaking by, not playing great. And by the way, just like when they won in unconvincing fashion, I said this is better than it meets the eye. I don't think yesterday was as great as maybe the thoughts are. They converted 1 third down all game. They were 1 of 13 on third down. Their quarterback was inconsistent. But when you look at it, 28-3, their most complete game of the season, and it seems every time they win, I say the stars showed up. But this is why Saquon Barkley's here. This is why A.J. Brown is here. I mean, it's a little different on defense, but I think you mentioned Saquon in the pitch to me here. And the reality is this: I think yesterday was an example of why they went out and got Saquon. Saquon is simply a better running back than DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders. Both of them were productive in this offense. Neither one of them had a rush of 50-plus yards. Saquon has 3 games of 100-plus yards already. That matches Miles Sanders back in 2022. That's more than DeAndre Swift last year. So I bring that up as a way of saying the Eagles thought there was more meat on the bone in the running game, and I think Saquon is showing you that.
They were watching those episodes from 2022 when we were wondering what this offense would look like with a real running back.
Boom! Yeah. He who laughs last laughs
Longest
loudest.
view in the room. We have some breaking news, Zach.
We have breaking news?
We do. The Eagles Sunday Night Football game against the Jacksonville Jaguars on 11/3. No longer Sunday Night Football. Flex to 4 o'clock.
Okay. So I was actually wondering if yesterday's results would change that, but that I'm okay with that. Are you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No sweat off my back.
Yeah. The post-game show now is a 7 o'clock one as opposed to, okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
No big deal for me. I think that's good news. All of a sudden, Rodgers making all the right decisions. Okay, let's talk about the offense, because my question for you, Zach, is the Saquon of it all. Is this team a run-first team now? And you look at the numbers yesterday, and because this game got away from the Giants, let's filter out the fourth quarter.
Yep.
First 3 quarters of the game, first and second down, the Eagles had designed runs, so that does not include scrambles, according to True Media, on 71% of their first and second down snaps. That is, in the first 3 quarters on first and second down, the highest rate of the Nick Sirianni era. Even higher than that stretch in 2021 when they leaned on the running game. They were even more run-heavy yesterday than in that stretch. Do you think that is the identity of this team now?
No, I don't. And I understand the question. And I listened to sports radio this morning. This topic came up. Nick Sirianni said yesterday, quote, "It's what we needed to do to win this week." And I think that is, or he said, "It's what we need to do this week to win." To be more, if I'm quoting him. I think that makes sense. When you're facing a defense that led the NFL in sacks, you look at the strength of that defense. The Eagles are playing without their starting left tackle. Saquon's return game, the Giants aren't particularly good at run defense. I thought it made sense for them to lean on the run yesterday. I don't think this is going to be the identity of the Eagles. The Eagles just spent roughly $200 million on A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. They did not do that for them the past 14 times a game. I understand Jalen Hurts has been inconsistent, but the reality is this is a team that is going to try to pass the ball all over the yard, and there are going to be games when they lean on the run, but it would surprise me if the game script going forward looks like the game script yesterday. Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree entirely, but I do disagree a little bit that they're going to want to pass the ball all over the yard. I think there's a little bit of a best of both worlds that they're trying to have here. Now, one of the reasons is at some point we're going to have the Saquon Barkley usage conversation. Like, are they going to be able to lean on him quite as much as they are right now? Because the further they get into December, you don't want him to be totally worn down. But I do think this goes to like the way that we view this Eagles team right now and like what the expectations are. If we are viewing them through the prism of the 2022 team or a team that entered the season with Super Bowl aspirations, right now they're not playing like that on offense. But if we're thinking of them as a quarterback who is imperfect and you are working around rather than like he is the star of the show, then yeah, I think they are going to have to lean on the running game and the throws outside the numbers to A.J. Brown, because right now Jalen Hurts is not willing to throw the ball over the middle of the field. I think there's a case to be made that yesterday was his worst game of the season, even though he didn't turn the ball over. All of that said, yesterday they're winning by so much, even in the third quarter, that the script got away from them a little bit. I think they were able to lean on the run a little bit more. Plus, I think Nick likes the Saquon of it. He's going back. He wants to play into that.
Yeah.
But I think their best way to win games right now is by playing mostly like this. Then, I don't think that's going to be how they can win a Super Bowl. But how could they beat the next opponent on their schedule? Yeah, I think that is the way that they are best suited to play right now.
I mean, I look at it 1 week ago. They played against a team that bottled up the run. Like the Browns and with Jim Schwartz, what their approach was to not let the Eagles get off not let Saquon go off, not let the running game do what it can do. And so there are going to be weeks like where you need Jalen to throw it around. There are going to be weeks when you're not playing with a 2-touchdown lead, and you're going to need to pass the ball.
No doubt.
So, yeah, I mean, and I said this when this whole identity conversation came up before the bye. If you want to know what a team values, look at how they spend their money. And the Eagles, I get they spent their money on running back and offensive line.
Yeah.
They just spent $200 million on A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith. It is not for DeVonta Smith to have one catch.
Well, that's the thing, though. If you think about the quarterback, if you don't trust the quarterback, then you got to spend money on this is who they have. We're making these bold proclamations, but these are the players on their roster. They're keeping the roster together.
Sure.
But philosophically, if you think you have a flawed quarterback, then you're willing to overspend on the wide receivers who can make up for the fact that if you have Patrick Mahomes, you don't need to spend all that money on the wide receivers because he can make guys good. He can throw guys open. If you don't have that and you need an offense to rely on, well, it's fourth down, let me throw it up to our, the best wide receiver in football, then that is who deserves the money.
Yeah, you see, I hear your point.
And I think you can think, if they entered the offseason thinking that our quarterback is a little bit flawed, then that's part of the reason you do overspend for a running back.
Well, I'm less focused on if this is what their recipe is going to be, because I don't think it's going to be, and more focused on can they get their quarterback to start hitting his layups? Because to me, that's what this comes down to. And there's going to be a piece on all PHLY from Fran, who's doing an outstanding job. But he gave a little tease on Twitter X today, showing
he's very good at those teases.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
It's like the upper thigh of the all 22 breakdowns, just a little something to keep you interested.
There you go. There you go. The upper thigh. You're a big upper thigh guy.
Hashtag Fran's thighs. Yeah, this is a long running thing.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. I remember it was at a Senior Bowl I was not present at. No, it was Shrine Bowl.
Yes,
Shrine Bowl. Yes. Yeah, Shrine Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's nothing you like more than making someone feel uncomfortable. So you're sitting down for an audio podcast.
Got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
You're sitting there for an audio podcast talking about his thighs. I remember that. That was the same off season when you and Jimmy had the long car ride podcast.
I believe that's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was actually in Orlando then at the Pro Bowl when you were at the Shrine Bowl.
Yes, yeah. I think Jimmy and I driving back from Mobile to Pensacola. I think something to the effect of the sign on the highway was God, Guns, Guts or something like that. I forget exactly what it was, but yeah.
In that order?
I think the last one might have been Guns.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I have no comment
3 Gs,
on that. Yeah. No comment on that. I remember.
What could we get you to comment on politically?
Politically?
Yeah.
I mean, if John Runyon used to, he was in office one time. If you want.
By the way, Little Birdie has sent me from the New York Times, NewYorkTimes.com.
Yeah,
Michael Gold reporting from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Former President Donald J. Trump on Saturday spewed crude and vulgar remarks at a rally in Pennsylvania that included an off-color remark about a famous golfer's penis size and a coarse insult about Vice President Kamala Harris.
Gotcha. I did not read that story. If I did,
honestly,
I would have been more
talking about Arnold Palmer's dong is like the first time that I've been interested in what he's had to say.
You're interested in
Go
that?
Go Deeks, yeah.
Go Deeks. All right. In any event, where were we? We were talking about the offense. So we were talking about Fran and the clip that Fran put up there.
Speaking of, let's talk about Fran.
And so there was a layup to DeVonta Smith, and you clearly see it. Fran has the overhead view, the all-22 view, and you see DeVonta crossing, and it's a matter of timing. Jalen needs to throw it at a certain time, and he has DeVonta there. He also has Gainwell, I believe, on the play too, but I'm focusing on DeVonta crossing the field.
Right. Well, yeah, as Fran explained on the first one, it's Gainwell. Yeah. Is the alert that Jalen thinks it is, and then he sees it, and it doesn't look like he's wide open, and he's slow to come off of it and notice that DeVonta in his same field of vision is open.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like,
I heard this is the 3rd and 3 that precedes the A.J. Brown touchdown.
I heard you guys talking on the show yesterday, and it was a good point where down by the red zone, was he trying to force feed DeVonta because DeVonta hadn't had touches there? I think DeVonta is the type of player who you can get easy touches for.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have to be hard. Like he's so good at getting open. But like what I think this offense needs right now are more layups, and this is kind of a thing that I'm going to be harping on this week. I'm so impressed by the big play element to this offense, the dynamic ability that they're showing. Nick Sirianni talks about explosives, but Nick's definition of explosives is 10+ yard rushes, 16+ yard passes. If he doesn't have a category for super explosives, if you will, but like the Eagles have 10 plays this year, 10 plays this year of 40+ yards, which is like crazy to think about. No other team is more than 7, and the Eagles have already had their bye week. Half of the Eagles' touchdown drives this year have included a play of 40+ yards in it.
Interesting.
And so,
do you think they are overly reliant on the big play?
Well, yeah. I mean, now when you have like, I think 4 or 5 of these are runs by Saquon, right, and who you're not scheming that up to be a big play, but he can do it. But I do think this is something that the Eagles are overly reliant on because you are going to have to manufacture drives. So when you look yesterday, for instance, 1 of 13 on 3rd down. Now I know they were 3 of 3 on 4th down, and sometimes you play on 3rd down knowing that you're going for it on 4th. But you need to move the sticks, and you want to manufacture drives. And I think part of that is layups to DeVonta Smith, layups even to A.J. Brown. And if there's anything that I think can improve this offense, it is get these guys volume. Like, and when we were watching it during training camp, one thing you saw was the short passes, quick timing passes. And I understand training camp's different. You're going up against a defense. You're going up against a scheme. I also think that Jalen's hyper aware right now of not turning the ball over, given the way that the first 4 games went, rather. But I do think that as we talk about the identity of this offense, it can't just be running the ball, and it needs to be incorporating DeVonta and AJ in ways that aren't just go downfield and win your matchup, because we've seen that in the past, and I don't know how sustainable that is for like a week-to-week offense.
Yeah, like the touchdown pass to A.J. Brown. Fran and I are watching that play, and we see him drop back to throw it like a deep old A.J. We're like, oh my God, here like this is the plan for it down. Like, okay, great, it works. Like, that is the superpower of having A.J. Brown. And in that situation, he's got a one-on-one against like their 4th corner. It's probably a good read. It's a good decision. But it is like, oh, that's the only button that we can press. It's a little bit uncreative, I guess. Now, at the same time, it's like, you coach who you have, you play the players that you have. If that's who you have, maybe that is the best thing that you can do. You're right. The numbers bear it out. For instance, the Eagles are offensively 10th in EPA per drive, but 16th in success rate. So that's a bit of a disparity, not a huge disparity, but of the good offenses in football, that puts them. Buffalo is a little bit more tilted. They're 4th in EPA per drive, 13th in success rate, and Green Bay is about the same as the Eagles. So of the good offenses, they are a little bit more big play heavy than most teams. And
the comparison I would give, and I put this on social media earlier, it's like when you watch the Phillies. And when they're hitting home runs, it's awesome, right? They're blowing out teams. But then when you're striking out, you're like, why can't you just manufacture runs? And it's not apples for apples, but there are times when you want to move the sticks, you want to see sustained drives, you want easy completions, and it's the football version of moving the guy over.
Yeah, I think that's right. Now, in this game, it was totally fine. It's a good way to play. I think we need to see a little bit more, whether that is the scheme or what. But, you look at the pass charts from yesterday, there's not a lot going on in the middle of it. I mean, he only threw 14 passes, right? So it's a little bit different. But
now more than 14 dropbacks, but 14 passes.
Yeah, and I do think, if you look at those sacks, some of them are probably on Jalen.
Sure.
Whether he should get rid of the ball or he should step up in the pocket. Some of them are, Fred Johnson gives up a bad pressure that's probably on him. But this is an imperfect offense right now, and that's why I think in the short term, leaning on the running game probably is the way to go.
I think, like anything else, you want it to be complementary as opposed to dominant.
Okay. And now, at the same time, I do got to say, like, Saquon is awesome to watch. He's so fun to watch.
Yeah, it's what we said when they signed him, that like you can talk about the value of the position. You can even quibble about the delta between because the Eagles have been productive in the past in the running game, and you can say, should they spend that money on a safety? Should they spend that money elsewhere? Right. But what I don't think is really up for debate is the type of player that he is when he's healthy. He's been healthy here. He's been dynamic. You see the advantage of running behind this offensive line. You even though Jalen it hasn't been outstanding, you see the advantage of playing within this offense. And he's just a special player. And I'm harping on those big runs because that's not what you saw in the past. And I thought you made a great point. I didn't know this stat until you said it. We kept talking about when they signed him the yards after contact, but the yards before contact, that's the benefit of playing here. And he's getting more free yards, if you will, than he has in the past.
Right. The thing that we all talked about when they signed him, the theory being that this special player, you take him away from what is one of the worst offensive situations in football. You put him in one of the most running back friendly situations in football. Imagine what could it be? Like that is completely playing out. Yeah. As like the philosophy behind it would have hoped that it would play out.
Yeah, and it's also the diversity of the Eagles' run scheme. Like Dexter Lawrence is obviously a really good player. You heard Nick Sirianni say that. You heard Saquon Barkley say that. You heard Jalen Hurts say that after the game. Well, the Eagles are so good at running to the outside that you aren't always neutralized by this great player in the middle of the line.
Well said. All right. More to get to, and we'll get to some of the leftovers on offense before we talk about the defense just after this word from our sponsors. Can you name every single subscription that you have? Not in Roger Goodell's world, that's for sure. I know I can. And I'm not alone. The script here tells me that over 74% of people have subscriptions they've forgotten about. With Rocket Money, you don't have to manage every subscription or worry about forgetting any because with Rocket Money, I can see all of them laid out right in front of me. Most Americans think they spend about $62 per month on subscriptions, but the real number, closer to $300. Woo! That's a big difference. Even if just a couple of subscriptions fall off your radar, those recurring payments you don't know about can really add up. Thanks to Rocket Money, I am no longer losing money because of subscriptions I forgot about. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps and finds and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place and know exactly where your money is going. For any you don't want anymore, Rocket Money can help you cancel them with just a few taps. And guess what? You don't have to deal with customer service. They will do it for you. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's features. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY, rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
I've been going up to watch Eagles-Giants games for a long time, and there's a lot that has changed over those years. But one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite, and that was reinforced to me as I was driving home last night listening to the PHLY Eagles show, and I heard Jamie talking about it, and he was talking about the great taste of Miller Lite, and that's the other thing that hasn't changed is that it's less filling. So what is it's the great taste and less filling. Miller Lite sparked this debate in 1975. We still have not settled it. It's a great light beer that it has what you look for in a light beer. What I like about it is that it keeps it simple. It's an undebatable quality with great taste. And if you want to be a little health conscious when you're having a nice light beer, only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need, holds on to what matters most. A light beer that tastes like beer, less filling, and only 96 calories. The original light beer since 1975. You don't need to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. They get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/PHLYBirds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
All right, Zach, let's talk about a dominant performance for the defense and taking into account that, this was not a good Giants offense, but also not one of the worst offenses in the league coming into the game, holding them to 119 net yards from scrimmage, 2.2 yards per play, 3 points. The defensive line getting after it. And I'm curious to hear when we talk to Fran tomorrow about, those sacks, those pressures, how much of that had to do from just the pass rush versus, the back end holding up and not having guys open for Daniel Jones to throw to. But this defense now on the season up to 11th in success rate, 18th in defensive EPA per drive. So they're sort of the inverse of the offense where they are giving up some big plays over the course of the season. But a big test next week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Do you think that this defense is rounding into shape, and is if the barometer is like 15th in the league, are they for real to that level?
Good question. Yeah, I think 15th in the league is a fair. I would say that, especially with the way their back end is playing, and I think as the sample size gets larger, we can say Quinyon Mitchell belongs. Like, he is,
no doubt.
He's sticky in coverage. He's getting his hands on footballs. Like the PBUs that you talked about.
I wish his hands were sticky.
Yeah. The PBUs that you talked about when he was at Toledo, that's continuing here, and that's a really good sign. And then I really do think Cooper DeJean has given the Eagles an element, and I don't mean to take away from Avonte Maddox, but there is a difference between Cooper DeJean and Avonte Maddox in terms of the quality of the player. I think that in terms of
the quality of athlete.
Yes, exactly.
That's on the field. Like,
exactly.
He just moves differently.
Yeah. I thought that now the Giants were not running the ball yesterday, and you can say partly of that was game script, but look, if the Giants had Saquon Barkley, they would probably run the ball more. They did not. Their running backs were not utilized well. Jordan Davis, I was speaking to him after the game. I said this on the show last night. He thought they were going to run the ball more. I think that's partly why the Eagles got away from Jordan Davis.
Played 11 snaps in this game. 8 of those snaps in the first quarter, so barely played after that. Let me just very quickly on Jordan Davis, since we're there. Third down snaps for Jordan Davis this season. 2 in week 1, 0 week 2, 4 week 3, 3 in week 4, 0 the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So as a run stuffer on early downs, he's playing well. I think he's doing a good job. But he is so far. It's hard the conversation of Jordan Davis is hard to divorce from the value and the use of the pick. When Kyle Hamilton goes to pick later.
Yeah.
He's a good player right now, but he is a bit player. He is not an every down player.
No, you're right, and I'll give credit to Jimmy Kempski on Philly Voice. He has the cut-ups of Jordan Davis's snaps, and you see it. Like, you can see how he's rerouting players in the run, and he's taking on double teams, and that part of it. So that's always kind of been the floor for him. Like, you expected that. Now, as you said on draft day, when you take someone 14th overall, the expectation is that, or was it 13th or 14th? I believe.
Yeah, I think that was right.
Okay, yeah. The expectation is that he can develop into more of a pass rusher, and that's exactly what Howie Roseman said. I think what we're seeing from Vic Fangio, frankly, is he's not interested in the organizational investment. He's interested in the best player he has on a given down. And you can see, based on the way he's using Moro Ojima, for instance, that he thinks that there are better options as interior rushers on those downs. You can see by the fact that he's not taking Jalen Carter off the field, that he thinks that, like, the way to win is by having Jalen Carter on the field just about every down. Now, one thing that you always hear in a football when you talk to defensive players is make the other team one-dimensional. And so when I talked about the fact that the Giants didn't have a running game, I thought that allowed the Eagles to use the expression pin their ears back. Now, part of that was the fact they were playing with the lead, but part of that is the Giants kind of indicated they weren't going to run the ball. They couldn't run the ball, and I think that's where I give credit to the Eagles pass rushers. They won their one-on-ones on all our social channels now. You see Vinny Curry breaking down with Bo on the post-game show. The high-low situation there with Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter. But that's an example of the rush working together. What I also saw when I watched the game back was the rush and coverage working together, and I think Fran will get to that in when we have him on tomorrow. Is that I don't want to say these were coverage sacks, but there were times when Daniel Jones didn't have a place to go with the ball. I saw Malik Neighbors' comment to watch his target film when he was open. I got to be honest, I didn't think there were times when it's like, ooh, he needs to find Neighbors there. I frankly thought that Jones was under duress quite a bit, and part of that was playing without a left tackle, but across the line, I saw, for instance, Bryce Huff. Bryce Huff was winning his matchup on his side now, so he's playing against the right tackle, and he was getting around there. And I thought this was a real positive game for Bryce Huff in terms of the pressures that he was generating. Josh Sweat, you saw the speed around the edge. I've mentioned Nolan Smith a few times because I was really impressed with Nolan Smith.
He looks much better.
Yeah. Now I understand it's 2 weeks here, but it's why you can't say after year one or even training camp 2, I don't know what's here, because I think the effort was always going to be there with him, but you're really seeing the athleticism translate to pass rush ability. So all across the board, I was really impressed with that group. Now, if they face an offense like the Bucs that get rid of the ball quickly, you have to wonder, like, how are they going to neutralize that? What are they going to do in those situations? Because that is something teams have done. But when you face teams that are dropping back and they have an inferior offensive line, I think these Eagles pass rushers can definitely get home.
Just trying to look up the Eagles' time to sack in this game on the Giants for this conversation. Looks like it was 3.3 seconds, essentially, which is about normal. Just a little bit slower than the median. So that would indicate a little bit of coverage. But yeah.
And Fran made a great point in real time, or I assume it was real time last night. It was right after the show. Mm-hmm. That, and then Professor Selman put it up today too, that even those sacks that Nakobe Dean had, those were 4-man rushes.
Yes.
Right? And so
all 8 sacks came on 4-man rushes.
Exactly. So there's a misconception sometimes when you see the linebacker going in that they're blitzing. It's not that. It's still a 4-man rush. It's just disguised in a certain way. And that's a credit to Vic Fangio. And
that opens up so much in the future as well.
Exactly.
In terms of the simulated pressures.
And speaking to Nakobe Dean after the game, one thing he said is that he's put a lot of power moves on film in his rushes.
Oh, interesting.
So this was so he was able to he was able to set the opposing offensive lineman up different because they were expecting him to come a one-way.
You saw that really play out on, I think, the first of the sacks because, he's coming, he's triggering downfield really fast, and you can see that the offensive lineman is sort of trying to set, and he just sort of runs around his hands. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's something where you're at a point in the season now where
that's a good locker room nugget, Zach. I like that.
So actually, I'll give credit to Olivia because I think she was the one who asked the question. Olivia Reiner from the Philadelphia Inquirer. I think she asked the question to Nakobe.
We love it, Olivia.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you haven't checked out the conversation with Melissa Ludke and Olivia Reiner from In Studio last week, it's hard to find on the YouTube page because it wasn't a live episode, but it should be on your podcast feed. Look for it. That was a very interesting, good conversation.
We'll tweet that out as well again.
Go ahead.
Because look, and to give the viewers some insight here.
So Olivia's the one who asked the question?
I believe so. Okay. Yeah. To give the viewers
knows ball.
She does. So every game, I look at the seating chart. Okay. And so what is the seat? So
it's just a very funny comeback from like Olivia's asking about the specifics of the pass rush, and you're like, every game I look at the seating chart.
Okay, can I explain why? Do you know where I'm going with
this? I'm just saying it's a funny comeback.
Do you know where I'm going with this? Okay, so this all goes back to Nakobe Dean, okay? Look at the seating chart. Not to see where I'm sitting, but to see what teams have scouts there at the games. Teams have personnel scouts, pro personnel scouts at these games. So if the Eagles are playing... last week, for instance, when the Eagles played the Browns, there was the Giants pro personnel director or someone high up in the Giants was there watching the Eagles. And one thing they're looking for is tendencies on players because then they go and they give it to the coaches. So you talk about Nakobe Dean.
Barkley guy.
So yeah, you go tell Joe Shane. This running back's pretty good. Yeah. So when you look at this here, you have a 6 or a 5-game sample going into this game of how Nakobe Dean is setting up his rushes. So the offensive lineman's thinking he's coming in with power and he can go around them there. So that's an example of how over the course of the season you have counter moves, you have different things that you work off of.
Yeah, love it. Love a tendency breaker.
Yes,
absolutely. So do you think this pass rush is for real?
I mean, I think it's better than it was earlier this season.
Okay.
I think it's better than I gave them credit for earlier this season. The one thing I don't think they have is that Hassan Reddick type player, Myles Garrett type player
Sure.
The guy is going to win his matchup on the edge every week. That said, I think Jalen Carter is that version of the player on the interior, and he is wrecking games. And I think he's really coming into his own.
I think your boy Josh Sweat is playing pretty well. He's not at that A1 level, but he's playing pretty well. I thought this was Bryce Huff's best game of the season. And so it seems like the group as a whole is rounding into form. They have to lean on Brandon Graham a little bit less with those other guys coming up. Nolan Smith got the start yesterday, which I do think is a little bit of a nod to him for playing better. And so I think, I don't think that it is a top 5 group in the league, but I think they can hold their own right now, especially against not good offensive lines.
Also, I need to say, J.Alex Hunt is he's showing something.
I'd like to see a little bit more of J.Alex Hunt.
Yeah, he is showing something. I thought this was going to be a redshirt type of year for J.Alex Hunt, and I understand it's late in the game, kind of wash up duty, but man, you can see the talent that he has. You can see the frame and the skills.
Well, and as you see, Troy Franklin producing for the Broncos lately, Jatavian Sanders producing for the Panthers. Yeah. Those were, if they had gone offensive weapon there, the guys who were on the board. So J.Alex Hunt, if he can contribute a little bit early, that would be nice.
Yeah, I need to see Troy Franklin do this because I think it was week 3 he dropped a touchdown in the end zone, and someone sent me a message like, "You still like Troy Franklin?" And I'm like, Let's give this a little time here. Yeah.
What is this water you have here? I've never seen this before. It's very fancy.
It's Hawaiian volcanic water. So on my ride to East Rutherford yesterday, I didn't have I didn't pack my water bottle, so I stopped at a Wawa on the way.
Wawa to get some Wawa.
I got energy drink. And then I was getting waters, and what I do is I look at the promotions. So this was the 2 for $3 deal. So I got the 2 for $3.
Interesting.
Yes.
2 for $3.
Yes, 2 for $3.
Okay. Oh,
yeah.
It looks very fancy.
It's good. You want some?
You can taste the volcano.
You taste the naturally alkaline electrolytes. That you get in the deep well water. I've never been to Hawaii. I've always wanted to go. Have I ever told you my Hawaii story?
I think so, but go ahead and tell us.
So, this was I was getting married, or
it's not Fiji water for the chat. It's, it's a different kind.
It's my Hawaiian's not very good.
Well, don't say the name. Don't do it.
We want you to sponsor us. That's true. Feel free to be a sponsor. So we were talking about where we would go, and I always wanted to go to Hawaii on my honeymoon. But my wife, then my girlfriend or fiance, was like, we can always go to Hawaii. I was like, we can't always go to Hawaii. Have you ever been to Hawaii? No. She's like, have you ever been to Hawaii? I'm like, no. And then literally at that time, the Eagles were rumored to be in the mix for Marcus Mariota, and had they taken Marcus Mariota, I would have had to go to, not had to, I would have gone to Hawaii for a story. So literally, she's like,
find out what restaurants he went to.
I actually did research on that to find out what restaurants, because he was at the Maxwell Awards, and that was one of the things that came up. I was doing some kind of I was doing some advanced work.
Of course.
Yeah. Enjoyed getting to know, or not getting to know, speaking to Marcus Mariota a bit last year. Saw him yesterday in that Commanders game. Played decently.
Yeah.
Commanders look legit.
They do. You didn't finish the Hawaii story.
Well, no. So I got overruled on the honeymoon thing, because she's like, well, if you're going to get sent there for work, then clearly you're able to go to Hawaii. If work's able to pay for you to go to Hawaii, they're not paying for you to go to Asia.
And so famously, instead, yes, you went to the entire continent of Asia.
Not the entire continent in Asia. I went to Hong Kong and an island.
Wow.
Yes.
Again, an island is very funny. But that's great. You're opening up finally. That's nice. All right, let's talk about our sponsors one more time. Specifically, the good folks at TrueMark Financial, right where Sean Grieve went to high school. TrueMark Financial Credit Union, you know what they got? They got that HELOC. A HELOC is a home equity line of credit that allows homeowners to borrow against home equity with a variable interest rate. Preserve your savings and get access to funds as needed for big renovations, education expenses, or emergencies using TrueMark Financial's budgeting tools to save for special purchases like limited edition merchandise. Regular contributions accumulate over time to reach savings goals effectively, and transferring as little as $5 a week gives you 260 big ones. That's more than enough for a Kelly Green jersey or anything else that you might be thinking about. TrueMark having their golf outing today. Jamie's out there, isn't he? Do we have any word on how he's doing? I hope he did very well. TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit truemark.com/PHLY. That's TRUMARK.com/PHLY.
Bo, I'm a fan of innovation. And one thing that I really look for in innovation is trying to make what seemed impossible possible. And that, to me, is glatt hair restoration.
Wow.
Because with the Morgenstern Center, look, everyone has different needs with their hair, okay? But the Morgenstern Center for Orbital and Facial Plastic Surgery, they recently welcomed the Glatt Group to the practice, creating an invaluable opportunity to leverage Dr. Glatt's high-caliber brand equity and begin an exciting chapter in Dr. Morgenstein's highly respected legacy. The great thing is the name is now Glatt Hair Restoration by Morgenstern Medical. It's a part of the Morgenstern Center, and it's under the direction of renowned plastic surgeon Dr. Ken Morgenstern. I think I said Morgenstein before. It's Morgenstern. Okay, Doctors Glatt and Morgenstern share a remarkable bond that spanned many years as colleagues and friends, from collaborating on critical research studies to working together in the operating room. So that's who they are. But what makes them better? Well, it's the same peerless approach to care, the same expert team, the same unmatched Glatt system, the same state-of-the-art location, and the same stellar results. Each member of this exceptionally trained team brings 30-plus years of industry experience, and hair restoration is all that they do. So it's not as if this is a side gig. This is their focus. Anyone can buy equipment and say they do hair restoration. Only Glatt Hair offers decades of proven results using an innovative approach and delivered by industry leaders. They have laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatment, vitamin supplementation, topical and oral medications, PRP and stem cell restoration, and hair restoration surgery. And each patient receives a complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. And the Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration. It's also about innovation, like I said. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit Glatt Hair, mctr.com, or call 610-980-4000 to get started.
I like the comment from, I believe it was the Truth in there, who says we should get Quinyon Mitchell a TrueMark endorsement because he lock wide receivers up.
That's true. That's true.
I like that.
And he knows it's a local company headquartered in Fort Washington, where Joey went to high school.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. Let's get to some leftovers here.
Yes, Zach. I love leftovers.
Sidney Brown making his season debut, mostly on special teams, played a little bit on defense. And Zach, this is the payoff of a long running bit.
You win. Serious injuries, and it did not look that way with AJ.
Sidney Brown.
Okay.
Bummer, obviously.
Yeah, especially this time, because now this is your entire offseason training camp. Yeah.
Right. He's, realistically not going to be back until the middle of next season, if at all. Right? I mean.
ACLs typically are like 9 months now, but.
Okay. So that would put him in the middle of next season.
Either early in next season. Yeah.
I mean, once the season starts, it's in the middle of the season.
Really? If you come back week 2, is that the middle of the season?
I mean, when did Kyler Murray come back? He suffered the exact same time, right? He came back in like mid-October, November.
Yeah, I mean, Carson was back week 3. He suffered his December 14th. So this one was
so 3 weeks later. So that was week 6.
Okay, all right. Sorry to argue with us semantics. Middle of the season.
I mean, you had to get in there, so let's argue it.
Okay.
New bet. Well, I think we should keep let's keep a tally at the start of the year. You say Sidney Brown will be back in September, basically.
Yes.
And I will take after September for Sidney Brown's return.
We'll make that bet.
Okay, let's put that on. We're gonna have to keep track of these as the season goes on, as the off season goes on. Now, what's interesting, Zach, is that clip cuts off. We didn't get to the stakes of the bet, and if you watch the rest of the episode, the loser of that bet has to disrobe on the show. So go ahead.
So who wins?
What do you mean who wins?
We said, so this was around the time frame I gave, week 6, week 7.
You heard the end of
Yeah.
the thing. You said in September.
Oh, in September. Okay, fair
and
enough.
I have
Okay,
everything
yeah.
after September.
All right,
You
so
came back on October 20th.
Yeah. So you win.
I know. So
For
show
sure.
us some nudity.
I'm not doing that. That was not the thing. You know, honestly, I'll tell you what I was thinking
Flash
when I was
that Arnold
watching.
Palmer.
What I was thinking when I was watching that is my wife is right. Okay, and what I mean by that is like she always tells me that the football season like wears on me. Okay, I look so much worse there.
Oh, I didn't
in
think that at all.
No, because like you look exhausted.
Oh, I
you
didn't
got
think that
bags
at all.
under your eyes. You're heavier. Like all
Oh,
this
that's
stuff.
also back when you used to do 5 shows a week. Or 4 shows, I guess.
Whoa. I still do the shows. I'm on 6 shows a week. Actually 7 shows a week because I'm pregame, postgame. Okay.
Well, yeah, we can't. You didn't count pregame. You want me to count the 5-minute halftime show?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's just I'm not in studio as frequently, but I'm on every show we have. Try him. Yeah.
Yeah. And now they want the show to show every part of you.
No, but I gotta say though, it's like that is the end of every season. It does take a toll, and so I guess that was visual evidence of it because you saw me in the bottom, you saw us in the bottom, and then you saw us on the screen, and I just saw the toll that it took.
I didn't think you looked bad at all.
Well, regardless, Sidney Brown, you were right.
I'm sorry, what was that?
You were right.
Okay.
I have no problem ever saying you're right. That's actually. You are right. Bo is correct about a lot of things. Not everything, but a lot of things.
Yeah, most things.
Yeah.
Over under, Zach, 1.5 offensive touches for Ben VanSumeren this season.
Under.
Okay.
But he is showing something there.
Yeah, it's a fun little thing.
Yeah. Saquon had 2 chunk plays, or relatively speaking, when he was in the game. He takes on blockers. He seems to be into it.
We saw him at the end of training camp route somebody up.
Yeah.
Like, run a nice route. I at some point they're gonna throw him the ball. I think.
He played running back. He played running back at Michigan before transferring to Michigan State. So this is in his background here. Good athlete.
You think this is going to be a growing package?
I think. What was that?
I didn't say anything.
I think that I think there are certain games when you'll see him play fullback more than in other games. Yes. I don't think it's gonna be every week. I don't think it's gonna be like.
You think there are going to be some games when they use him more than in other weeks?
I don't think he's.
Thank you.
I don't think it's gonna be Kyle Juszczyk. I don't think it's gonna be Kyle Juszczyk out there. I don't think it's gonna be Alec Ingold out there. Trying to think what other teams use fullbacks. But I think
CJ Ham.
CJ Ham, yes. Yeah, that's a big ham for you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I do think that that you will see this more and more.
When you hear the last name Ham, do you think of the Darvin Ham performance in the college dunk contest from when we were growing up?
I think he was on the Sports Illustrated cover, wasn't he, when he broke the backboard?
That might be right.
Yeah, that's what I think of. I associate a lot of things with Sports Illustrated covers. That was like growing up, Wednesdays, the Wednesday mail was like a highlight for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can read some great writers.
Okay. Let's talk Tyler Steen and Mekhi Becton and Fred Johnson and the offensive line machinations here. Mekhi Becton suffers the concussion, leaves, but was still, as you reported after the game, was still dapping everybody up on the way to the postgame locker room. So fingers crossed, seems solid, but may still miss this next game. Fred Johnson, I thought was up and down so far. We'll hear what Fran said after watching the tape, but there were some highlight blocks in the running game. There were some times when he struggled in pass protection. I do believe that, given that Mailata is going to be out for at least 3 more games, there is a possibility that we end up seeing Tyler Steen there at some point.
At left tackle.
I think that's a possibility.
Interesting. Yes. Okay.
But how do you see this all playing out over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah. So typically in these situations, you hear that offensive linemen are more comfortable in run blocking than in pass blocking, and I think that was applicable. Now we didn't see Tyler Steen as much in pass blocking when he went in the game. They were running the ball much more by that point. But Tyler Steen looked like a force. That might be hyperbole, but he played the best I've seen him play out I was impressed with Tyler Steen. I thought Fred Johnson was superior as a run blocker than as a pass blocker. You are correct. He did get beat. I think 2 of those sacks you can put on him. Would you agree?
Well, I wouldn't do that to him, but
Okay. 1?
yeah, I think that's
1. Okay, 1 sack. Okay. What?
Go ahead. I'm being juvenile.
Oh, Poe. All right, I see what you just did there. All right. Poe, you have such sophomoric humor. I'm seriously.
Man of the people.
What people? Yeah.
The people.
I don't think that's what people thought when they say, when people hear sacks, I don't think that's what they think of.
Julia's laughing. I think when you say I wouldn't put those sacks on him, I think there's a portion of the audience that, that makes their ears turn up.
Once again.
Is that a phrase? Ears turn up? That's
ears perk up, I believe.
Perk up, yeah.
I got to say,
do a double take at least.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Worked really hard to get to this point in my career. I invested a lot in taking this job, like really big, and I'm here trying to determine if the audience is thinking about sophomoric humor when I talk about defensive sacks. Okay.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you had said I wouldn't say that those sacks were his fault. I don't think anybody would have thought it. But when you say I wouldn't put those sacks on him, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more evocative.
No, it's not. It is not. And I will die on that grave that it is not. Okay.
I mean, it is. Of the 2, one is more evocative than the other.
Someone pointed out to me, and this is why, if you've noticed this, if you've noticed this, I've been really careful. When I talk about Quinyon Mitchell, I say he's really good at getting his hands on footballs, because there was like a week the week when I was talking about all the PBUs, and I said like 4 times on the show, he gets his hands on a lot of balls, and someone messaged me being like, you should say footballs. And I was like, what makes you think of that? So, I need to say defensive takedowns. Or the defensive takedowns I would not put on, or I would put 2 of them on him. But let's say 1. In any event, I thought
it's good that this episode's coming full circle.
Yeah, I thought
the way that we began.
I thought the offensive line was much better from a run blocking perspective, and I was really impressed with the way Tyler Steen played. I'll turn this to you. You think that's Mekhi Becton's job no matter what, correct?
That's a good question. I think the way that they are acting, and organizationally, I think that like Jeff Stoutland has a presence for the size of Mekhi Becton. So I think it probably is his job. I mean, we talked about it. Like they even made them change lockers. Like Tyler Steen had the locker between Cam Jurgens and Lane Johnson, and they made him move and put Mekhi Becton there, which is kind of mean. So I think that is probably the case. But I also think I think there's a real case to be made that Tyler Steen might be better at right guard than Mekhi Becton. I think he might be a more complete player. I think for whatever reason, there is something about Tyler Steen that in the building the Eagles don't love or don't trust. But I do think that there is a chance that if he goes out next week and plays really well, they consider whether, having Steen and Becton on the field in some combination is better than Fred Johnson.
Yeah, I still think that's Becton's job. That's Becton's job. I think they see more upside from Becton. I do wonder if they're to the point you just made, and we don't know how long Mylott is going to be out. But if they look at it from like a 2-week period, let's say after Becton comes back from the injury, what if they say, all right, we're going to try Becton at left tackle and Steen at left guard? Oh, I'm sorry, Steen at right guard.
I think that is less likely, moving Becton back to tackle. I think it is more likely that they would move Steen and keep Becton at guard.
Okay.
Just my guess. Are you worried at all about DeVonta Smith not being involved in the offense?
Not at all. Not at all. There's a lot of things that might worry me about the Eagles. DeVonta Smith is last on that list. Now, you talk about the offensive involvement. I think there are going to be weeks when he has 10, 12 targets. Yesterday, only 14 pass attempts, like we said. I think that they need to manufacture more layups for him, but I think that's easier to do for DeVonta Smith than most players. And I would imagine next week, I keep thinking back to week 1 against Detroit. He had 1 catch in 2022. Then the next week he has 10 catches or thereabouts against Washington. I'm fascinated. I'm going to write this week about the wide receiver combination thing, because one thing that I thought the Eagles did so much this offseason and probably didn't get enough attention was that they were able to keep both AJ and DeVonta. I think you're seeing in Cincinnati right now the issue that this can create. T. Higgins is playing on the franchise tag. I don't anticipate them re-signing him. Jamar Chase wants big money, hasn't received that deal. I think wants more money than Justin Jefferson is the report. Going into the year, I would have said that the 3 best wide receiver combinations in the NFL are Philly, Cincinnati, and Miami. And the fact that the Eagles were able to keep AJ and DeVonta together because there was a prevailing thought that trade one and extend one and trade one. But I bring that up because one of the things we talked about is when a benefit in signing them is you don't have to worry about these games when there's a dearth of targets.
Yes, exactly. You don't. They're not worried. They're not counting because they've already been paid. Do you think this is a thing we haven't talked about yet? Do you think we're going to get like a Milton Williams in-season extension?
No, I don't. Do you?
Well, because I'm asking because of the Aleem McNeil contract that the Lions inked him to.
If that's the market they're swimming in, then definitely no.
Hopefully Tom Donahoe gets a percentage.
Yeah, Tom Donahoe was right there, right? Although Milton's been a good player.
Milton's been a good player.
I think both teams
benefit.
benefit.
Also, if you take Aleem McNeil, you don't take Jordan Davis next year.
Exactly.
There's all these.
Now, who do you think they? Now let's just play that out. Who do you think they would have taken? Do you think they would have taken Kyle Hamilton? They probably don't trade up in that case, right?
Yeah, I think they sit.
They sit,
and then
try to take Trent McDuffie.
Yeah, that might be right.
Yeah, they probably take Trent McDuffie.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of like, if they don't take Nolan Smith, they probably take Brian Branch, and then they don't take two.
It's true. It's a good point.
There's also
what are always
one other one I've been thinking about lately is we know that they liked Zach Allen.
Yes.
In free agency, and he's been playing very well.
Very well.
And that he would be probably their best or second best defensive lineman right now. And then you wouldn't have had you probably still take Jalen Carter, but you don't have to. Maybe you don't have to re-sign. You don't have to sign Bryce Huff for whatever reason.
Sure.
The defense would look better, and you wouldn't have James Bradbury. Like I don't know.
There's sliding doors, man. Those are fun.
Super chat from our man, our benefactor CDP, who says when Sirianni put Kenny Pickett in the game, had he realized Brian Daboll had already put Drew Lock to still try to win instead of resting the starters?
Good question. I don't know if it came up specific. Now, Drew Lock had already been in the game,
right?
And I think that was the series. If you watch the game back, when you saw Nick sitting down with Saquon talking about whether to keep him in or not. So my guess is both teams probably had the same inclination, but certainly seeing Drew Lock in the game probably signaled to the Eagles to put their reserves in. Now it wasn't framed. Now at the time that it happened, I wasn't certain if this was Brian Daboll throwing in the white flag,
right,
or if this was a benching, a soft benching, similar to Quinn Ewers on Saturday night. But for those who don't understand the reference, he's Texas's quarterback. They took him out. They put Arch Manning in when they were trailing. But it certainly sounds like that was them throwing in the flag. Daboll said they needed a spark, but Daniel Jones is still their quarterback.
Interesting. We'll talk to Nick Sirianni in about 15 minutes. What's your big question for him?
The big play element of the offense.
Are they too reliant?
Yes. Okay. Or you got to think of how to phrase it.
Yeah, because
right?
you don't want him to be defensive. Like, all of a sudden we're not allowed to throw the ball 40 yards.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, the sustainability of that, and if that's, I mean, part of that's by having exceptional players. Like the reality is, you look at those big plays. It's not like Jahan Dotson doing them. I mean, not to take anything away from Jahan Dotson, but it's A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley are the big play guys there, and I think DeVonta's in there as well. I gotta look through those numbers.
He's got at least one.
I
think. Yeah. Okay. Good conversation.
I love this.
Way to hang.
I miss being in the studio.
I miss having you here.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Darn Eagles schedule. But you know what? I will say this, and this is a rationalization, but it's true. 8 months of the year, we do the show.
True.
5 days a week in studio, same time, no interruptions other than, Super Bowl draft, that kind of thing, right? So I just need to remember the season is different than the non-playing season. And
the NPO.
Yes. And so whenever it starts up again, mid-January, mid-February, whatever it may be, I will be in studio every day, and you and Joya will be sick of me by then.
Never.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Back tomorrow. We love those Tuesday shows. Zach Berman, Bo Wulf, Fran Duffy breaking down the tape, what we need to know about the Eagles as we get a full week of football with the big game against the Cincinnati Bengals coming up next week. That'll do it. Thanks, everybody, for watching and listening. Make sure you become a diehard, all that good stuff, so you can read Zach's story on allphly.com and what Fran has to come. Les Bowen as well, all that good stuff. For Julia and all of us here, we thank you for watching and listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2. And at always? God. As always, go Deeks, and we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.